Your phone buzzes with another like, and for a moment, you feel a little better. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, wrote that the praise of others is nothing more than a clacking of tongues. This ancient struggle against our own ego is the very same battle you fight today when you check your notifications. The relentless pursuit of validation is a 2,000-year-old trap, and Stoicism holds the key to a freedom that no amount of external approval can ever provide. This path is not about suppressing desire, but about discovering a source of self-worth that cannot be taken away. We will explore the core Stoic principles that teach you how to reclaim your inner citadel. What does it truly mean to be free from the opinions of others? What if the very thing you're chasing to feel good about yourself is the very thing that makes you miserable? This is the core illusion the Stoics sought to shatter. They proposed a simple, yet life-altering, division of everything in existence into two categories. On one side are the things that are within our complete control, our own judgments, our intentions, our desires, and our actions. On the other side is everything else, and that includes the opinions, praise, and validation of every other person on the planet. The relentless anxiety of modern life, that constant need to check for likes and positive comments, springs from a single error. We are desperately trying to control what is not ours to control. The philosopher Epictetus, born a slave, opened his manual for living the discourses with this very point. He wrote, "Some things are up to us, and some are not up to us." Our opinions are up to us, our impulses, desires, aversions. Whatever is not our own doing is not up to us. Your reputation is not your own doing. It is the opinion of others, and therefore it is not up to you. Consider two artists. The first creates purely for the love of the process, for the act of bringing a vision to life. A negative review might be disappointing, but it doesn't shatter their world because their primary source of fulfillment was the act of creation itself, something entirely within their control. The second artist creates only for the applause. Their entire sense of self-worth is tied to the critic's review or the number of pieces sold. They are on an emotional roller coaster they can never get off because they have handed the controls of their inner peace to a fickle and unpredictable world. The work itself becomes a source of agony, not joy. Where in your own life do you feel that flicker of happiness is entirely dependent on someone else's approval? Is it waiting for a specific text message, the performance review from your boss, or the comments on a social media post? Identifying that single point of dependency is the first and most courageous step toward taking that control back. Seneca observed that the Roman elite were prisoners to public opinion, a cage we haven't escaped. They would change their entire demeanor, their political stances, even their friendships, all based on the shifting winds of popular favor. 2,000 years later, we are still living in that same cage, just with a digital set of bars. This is the tyranny of opinion, and it operates on a simple, brutal principle. Every time you crave a compliment or you feel crushed by criticism, you have voluntarily handed the reins of your emotional state to someone else. You have made them the master of your inner world. The Stoics called this a form of voluntary slavery. A person who is sovereign within themselves, however, draws their self-worth from an unshakable internal source. Seneca wrote in his letters, "It is the part of a weak mind to be disturbed by either the praise or the blame of the crowd." He saw clearly that the crowd is fickle, its judgments are inconsistent, and to build your sense of self upon such a foundation is to build your house on quicksand. Consider a job seeker who pours their heart into an application. They get a single, impersonal rejection email. If their ego is fragile and dependent on that external yes, that one rejection can feel like a verdict on their entire worth. They are defeated not by the reality of the job market, but by the meaning they assign to that single opinion. Their entire day, perhaps their entire week, is now colored by a decision made by a stranger in a hiring department. The Stoic alternative is not to become indifferent, but to shift your focus entirely to the one thing you truly controlled, which was the quality of your application and your effort. The outcome was never yours to command. Think back to the last time a negative comment, perhaps an offhand remark from a colleague or a critical message online, completely ruined your day. What would it mean to be free from that? It wouldn't mean becoming numb or uncaring. It would mean that your peace is no longer a prize that other people get to grant or take away. The Stoics proposed a radical alternative to chasing validation, building an unshakable character. This character is forged through virtue, which they defined as the sole good in life. For them, virtue wasn't about being morally perfect in a religious sense. It was about excellence of character, expressed through 4 cardinal qualities: practical wisdom to navigate complex situations, the courage to do what is right even when it is difficult, justice in your dealings with others, and temperance or self-discipline in your desires and actions. When you make the cultivation of these traits your primary goal, the entire game changes. The need for external validation becomes irrelevant because your self-worth is measured by your own internal compass, not by the applause of the crowd. Your focus shifts from seeking praise to ensuring your actions are praiseworthy, regardless of whether anyone ever notices. Marcus Aurelius captured this perfectly in his private writings, his meditations. He wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." And in another passage he instructed himself, "You can commit a just act without any fanfare, without anyone ever knowing." The act itself is its own reward. The satisfaction comes from the alignment between your actions and your principles, a reward that no one can give you and no one can take away. Consider the modern-day whistleblower. They often face public condemnation, legal battles, and personal ruin. From the outside, their actions might seem like a failure, a path that leads to being ostracized and criticized. But if their action was rooted in the Stoic virtues of courage and justice, then their internal state is one of integrity. They acted according to their character, and that internal victory, the knowledge that they did the right thing despite the cost, is a form of success that external opinion cannot touch. Their sense of worth remains intact precisely because it was never built on public favor in the first place. Now, bring this down to a moment in your own life from the past week. Think of a recent action you took, whether it was a small act of kindness, a difficult conversation you initiated, or a project you completed. Ask yourself this simple, revealing question. Was that action primarily driven by a desire to look good in the eyes of others, or was it driven by a genuine intention to do good, according to your own principles? The answer isn't about judging yourself, but about noticing where you've placed the source of your satisfaction. This is the quiet work of building that inner citadel, brick by virtuous brick. What if you actively imagined losing the very validation you crave? The Stoics proposed a counterintuitive exercise to do exactly that, a practice they called Premeditation Malorum, the premeditation of evils. This is not about pessimism or dwelling on the negative. It is a psychological vaccine, a deliberate rehearsal of potential losses to build immunity against the fear of them. By walking through the worst-case scenario in your mind, you strip it of its power to shock and destabilize you when, or if, it ever arrives. Seneca was a strong proponent of this mental training. He advised periodically rehearsing poverty, exile, and disgrace. He wrote that we should send ourselves into exile every so often and place ourselves in want. Why would anyone do this? He explains it is to discover that the man who has feared losing his reputation has already lost it. By voluntarily confronting the possibility of disgrace, you realize that your character, your virtue, remains completely intact even without public approval. The fear of the fall is often far worse than the reality of landing. Think of a modern content creator whose entire platform and sense of identity is tied to their subscriber count and positive engagement. The practice of premeditatio malorum would have them sit down and vividly imagine their channel failing. They would picture the views plummeting, the harsh comments rolling in, the sponsorship deals vanishing. They would sit with that feeling of public failure, not to succumb to despair, but to ask a crucial Stoic question: what remains? They would discover that after the external validation is gone, they are still the same person. They still have their skills, their capacity for effort, and their ability to create work they believe in. The platform was never the source of their worth, only a temporary amplifier. The goal is to find a profound peace in the effort itself, so that your fulfillment is no longer hostage to an outcome you cannot fully control. Now, take this into your own life for just 2 minutes. Bring to mind a situation where you deeply fear receiving harsh criticism, perhaps for a project at work or a personal decision you have made. Now, close your eyes and mentally rehearse that scenario. Imagine the critical email arriving, the disappointed look from a colleague, the negative feedback. But instead of reacting with panic or defensiveness, visualize yourself responding with calm acceptance. Your inner citadel remains unbreached. You acknowledge the criticism, you assess it for any useful truth, and you release the rest, secure in the knowledge that your worth was never on the line. This mental rehearsal is not about preparing for defeat, but about fortifying your peace so that no external opinion can ever truly defeat you. The Stoics saw the ego not as a friend to be defended, but as a phantom to be seen through. This constructed self, the one that frets over its social media image and bristles at a slight, is a fragile imitation of who you truly are. Its entire existence depends on external reinforcement, on the constant stream of likes, titles, and compliments that confirm its story. The Stoic ideal, in stark contrast, is the hegemonikon, your rational, guiding principle. This is the calm core of your consciousness, the part that observes the ego's frantic demands without needing to obey them. It is the you that exists before you put on the mask for the world. Epictetus drew a powerful line in the sand to illustrate this. He taught that you are not your hand, you are not your property, and you are most certainly not your reputation. You are your faculty of choice, your capacity to use impressions rightly. Your body can be injured, your reputation smeared, but your power to choose your response remains yours, inviolable, so long as you remember where your true self resides. Think of life as a grand stage play. The ego is the actor out under the hot lights, desperately clinging to every round of applause and crushed by any silence. It believes the character it is playing is its entire identity. The Stoic Sage, the person you are cultivating, is the one backstage. They watch the performance, they play their part to the best of their ability, but they know the role is temporary and the applause is fleeting. They never confuse the costume with the person wearing it. When the play is over, the actor who believed the hype is lost and disoriented. The person backstage simply takes off the makeup and goes home, their peace entirely undisturbed. So, in the quiet of your own mind, ask yourself this revealing question. What parts of the identity you present to the world are performative, carefully designed to win approval or avoid judgment? Is it the job title you lean on, the car you drive, the witty persona you adopt at parties? And which parts feel authentically, quietly you, regardless of who is watching? The space between those two answers is where your real work begins. The Stoics offered a liberating paradox at the heart of this struggle. You can prefer to have a good reputation, but you must be completely indifferent to not having one. This is the subtle and profound doctrine of preferred indifference. Things like wealth, health, and public acclaim fall into this category. It is perfectly natural, even rational, to prefer them. Who wouldn't want to be healthy, financially secure, or well-regarded? The crucial distinction, the one that dictates your entire emotional life, is that your core well-being, your happiness and self-worth, cannot be made to depend on securing them. Your fulfillment must be rooted in something that cannot be taken away, which is your own virtuous character. Everything else is merely preferred, but ultimately indifferent to your inner peace. Epictetus draws this line with unflinching clarity. He reminds us that our faculty of choice, our virtue, is what is truly up to us. Our reputation, our social standing, our body itself, these are not up to us. He then makes the critical distinction. He said, some things are up to us while others are not. Up to us are opinion, impulse, desire, aversion. Not up to us are our body, our property, our reputation, our public office. So how are we to live with these things that are not up to us? We are to treat them as a traveler treats an inn. You prefer a comfortable room for the night, but if the only room available is simple and small, you accept it without complaint. The quality of the inn does not define the traveler. Your reputation is just an inn you visit on your journey. It is preferred to have a good one, but your worth is not diminished if you find yourself in a humble one. Consider an Olympic athlete who has trained for a decade. They naturally prefer to win the gold medal. The desire for that victory fuels their discipline. But on the day of the race, 100 things outside their control can happen. A competitor might have a supernatural performance, the weather might shift, or a simple stumble could cost them the podium. The Stoic athlete competes with every ounce of their being, fully preferring that victory. Yet, if they cross the finish line in 4th place, their sense of accomplishment remains intact. Why? Because their true goal was not the medal, which was never fully within their power to secure. Their true goal was to have competed with courage, discipline, and excellence. That victory, the victory of character, was achieved the moment they stepped onto the track and gave their absolute best. The color of the medal is a preferred indifferent. The integrity of their effort is everything. Now, bring this home to your own life. Take a moment to identify 3 things you strongly prefer right now. Perhaps you prefer a promotion at work. You prefer for a specific person to like and respect you. You prefer for a creative project you've shared to be met with widespread praise. Write these down mentally. Now, here is the practice of true freedom. For just a few minutes, consciously and deliberately, practice letting go of the need for these specific outcomes to happen. This isn't about giving up on your goals or ceasing to take action. It is about severing the mental link between those outcomes and your personal peace. Imagine your life unfolding with equal happiness and purpose, even if that promotion goes to someone else, even if that person remains indifferent to you, even if your project receives no applause at all. Can you feel the space that opens up? That spaciousness, that quiet liberation from a specific future you are clinging to, is the taste of Stoic indifference. It is the power to prefer without being enslaved by that preference. Before sleep, the Stoics engaged in a practice that could dissolve a day's worth of anxiety over what others thought. This nightly ritual of self-examination, often called the evening review, was their method for sharpening self-awareness and cutting the cords of dependency on external validation. It is a quiet, honest conversation with yourself, a way to audit the day not for financial gain, but for the far more valuable currency of inner peace. Seneca, in his letters, details this practice with striking vulnerability. He wrote that he would interrogate his own actions after the lights were out, asking himself, "Where did I go wrong today? What unfulfilled desire did I chase? Did my actions align with my character, or was I performing for an audience?" He believed this daily scrutiny was the path to self-improvement, a way to pardon his own mistakes and resolve to do better the next day. The power of this practice lies not in self-punishment, but in gentle, objective observation. You are not a judge sentencing a criminal, but a coach reviewing game footage to identify where the play broke down. The specific breakdown you are looking for is the moment you handed your emotional state to someone else. Imagine a typical modern scenario. You spent part of your afternoon crafting a social media post, perhaps sharing a professional achievement. As you lie in bed, you recall the flicker of disappointment when the likes were slower to arrive than you expected. The evening review invites you to gently question that feeling. Why did that number hold power over me? Was my primary motivation to share a genuine accomplishment, or was it to receive the affirming comments that would make me feel validated? The goal is not to condemn the post, but to understand the impulse behind it. This simple act of noticing, of shining a light on that craving for approval, begins to rob it of its automatic control over you. Tonight, before you drift off to sleep, try this for yourself. Set aside just 5 minutes of quiet. Mentally walk back through your day from morning until now. Look for the subtle moments where your mood shifted because of an external signal. Did a compliment from your boss give you a disproportionate high? Did a critical remark from a family member send you into a spiral of frustration? In each of these moments, ask Seneca's questions. Where did I seek external approval today? And more importantly, did I act according to my own principles, or did I bend to fit the expectations of others? This is not about creating a list of failures, but about collecting data on where you are still giving your power away. Each observation is a single brick you are reclaiming to fortify your inner citadel. In a world screaming, "Look at me," the Stoics found profound power in being overlooked. This is not a philosophy of failure, but a strategy for a life of integrity. The relentless pursuit of the spotlight forces a constant performance, a distortion of your true character to meet the expectations of an audience. You begin to make choices based on what will get applause, not on what is right or true for you. This corrupts from the inside, creating a fragile self that cannot exist without an audience to sustain it. Obscurity, in the Stoic view, is the fertile ground where genuine self-development can occur, free from the pressure to perform. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world, constantly reminded himself of the emptiness of public acclaim. He wrote in his private journal how quickly all things disappear, our bodies themselves into the world, our memories into the stream of time. And look at the gulf of eternity behind us and before us. In this vastness, what is the praise of others? It is a mere clatter. He concluded that the only life worth living is one led according to nature, a small circle of virtue that requires no grand stage. Consider the immense stress that defines the life of a modern celebrity. Every action is scrutinized, every misstep amplified into a public scandal. Their sense of self is perpetually at the mercy of tabloid headlines and social media trends. They are trapped in a golden cage, their freedom to be authentically themselves traded for fame. Now picture a dedicated teacher in a small town whose name will never be in the news. Their work shapes generations, yet they labor in relative anonymity. Or consider a master craftsman who pours their soul into creating beautiful furniture, their satisfaction coming from the integrity of the joinery and the smoothness of the finish, not from the name on the showroom tag. Their lives are tranquil and deeply purposeful because their validation is built into the work itself. Their reward is the quiet knowledge of a job well done, a reward that is both immediate and permanent. So take a moment and imagine your own most cherished goal, the project you dream of completing. Now, hold that goal in your mind and perform a simple but liberating thought experiment. What if you knew with absolute certainty that no one would ever know you accomplished it? No one would praise you, no recognition would come your way, your name would not be attached to it in any history book. Would you still pursue it with the same passion and dedication? The fire that remains after you strip away the desire for applause, that is the pure fuel of your authentic purpose. That is the work you are truly meant to do. The Stoics built an inner citadel, and its first gate was the power to say no to impressions. This is the discipline of assent, the crucial moment between an external event and your internal reaction, where your true freedom is either won or lost. An impression is not the thing itself, but your mind's initial, raw interpretation of it. A harsh comment is just a string of words until your mind assigns it the power to wound you. A glowing compliment is just a vibration in the air until your mind assigns it the power to define you. The discipline of assent is the practice of inserting a pause into that automatic process, a moment of sovereignty where you choose whether to accept that initial interpretation as the truth. Epictetus, who laid out this mental technology with unmatched clarity, gave us the foundational principle. He said, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them." The criticism does not disturb you. It is your own assented belief that the criticism is valid and damaging that creates the disturbance. The praise does not fulfill you. It is your own assented belief that the praise confirms your worth that creates the fleeting high. Your inner citadel remains secure only when you guard this gate. Imagine you present a project at work and a respected colleague pulls you aside to say, "That was brilliant." The initial, flattering impression rushes in, whispering that you are indeed brilliant and finally recognized. Without the discipline of assent, you might cling to that comment, letting it inflate your ego and becoming dependent on that person's future approval. With the discipline, you intercept that impression. You notice the pleasant feeling, but you consciously choose your response. You might think that is an external impression. My colleague offered a kind opinion. I will accept it graciously, but my own assessment of my work, based on the effort and integrity I put into it, is the only measure that truly matters. The compliment becomes a neutral event, a data point, rather than a drug your ego craves. The same process applies to a cutting remark. The initial impression screams that you have been attacked and disrespected. The undisciplined mind immediately agrees, launching into anger or self-pity. The trained mind pauses and labels the impression for what it is, a string of words from someone who may be having a bad day or may simply hold a different view. You then have the space to ask, is there any useful truth here I can learn from? If so, you extract it. If not, you let the rest pass by like background noise, unable to breach your walls. For the next 24 hours, try a simple but profound experiment. Make it your practice to mentally label every single piece of feedback you receive, whether a like on a photo or a critique from your manager, as an external impression. Do not get caught in judging whether it is right or wrong, good or bad. Simply notice the thought, "This person thinks I am clever," and tag it external impression. Or notice the feeling when you see a negative comment and tag that too external impression. This is not about becoming cold or unfeeling. It is about reclaiming the space between the world's chatter and your own soul. It is in that quiet space that you will find a freedom no amount of praise can ever give, and that no amount of criticism can ever take away. It's almost impossible not to look at someone else's life and feel like you're falling behind. You scroll through a feed of polished achievements and curated happiness, and a quiet voice whispers that you are not enough. This social comparison is the engine of validation seeking, and Stoicism offers a direct and permanent shutdown of that engine. The philosophy insists that your only meaningful task is to run your own race, to fulfill the unique potential of your own nature, without using the accomplishments or approval of others as your measuring stick. Marcus Aurelius, while managing the vast Roman Empire, constantly reminded himself of this truth. He wrote that we are all born for each other's sake, or alternatively, that we are made for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like eyelids. Yet immediately after this, he gives the crucial counterpoint. He instructs himself, but follow your own reason instead. We are part of a community, yes, but we are each given a unique role and a unique path. To abandon your own reason and your own path to chase the shadow of someone else's life is to betray your fundamental purpose. Think of a gardener who has been given a specific plot of land and a unique set of seeds. Their job is to understand their own soil, their own sunlight, and to nurture their own plants through their seasonal cycles. Now imagine this gardener spends every day looking over the fence at their neighbor's garden. They see tall sunflowers and feel inadequate because they were meant to grow deep-rooted carrots. They see a ripe tomato and despair that their own squash is still only a flower. This gardener is causing themselves immense, unnecessary stress by comparing two entirely different ecosystems with different purposes and different timelines. Their carrots are not failing because they are not sunflowers. Their job is to grow the best carrots possible in their own plot. Your life is that garden. Your talents, your circumstances, and your personal journey are the unique conditions of your plot. To constantly measure your progress against someone else's highlight reel is to misunderstand your assignment entirely. Your peace depends on tending to your own ground, so take a moment for a quiet, honest reflection. Grab a piece of paper or just pause and think. Write down one specific way you constantly compare yourself to others. Is it a colleague's rapid promotion, a friend's seemingly perfect relationship, their number of followers? Now take that single point of comparison and actively reframe it. Shift the focus from their progress to your own. Instead of thinking, they are so far ahead of me, reframe it to, what is the very next step I can take to grow in my own chosen direction? This simple act of reframing is not positive thinking. It is a deliberate recalibration of your attention back to the only arena where your efforts truly matter and where your peace can actually be found. What if you intentionally made yourself a little uncomfortable to become a lot more free? The Stoics developed a powerful tool to answer this challenge, a practice known as voluntary discomfort. It is a deliberate and temporary embrace of hardship, not as a form of punishment but as a form of training. The goal is to prove to your own psyche that the comforts and the praise you chase are not necessities for your peace. You are building a muscle of resilience, demonstrating through direct experience that you can endure and even thrive without the very things you fear losing. The philosopher Musonius Rufus was a staunch advocate of this training. He argued that to practice hardship is to practice freedom, stating that the person who practices enduring hardship is the one who will live with the least anxiety. He saw luxury and the constant pursuit of ease as a trap, making a person soft and terrified of any disruption. By voluntarily choosing a minor hardship, you vaccinate yourself against the fear of a major one. You discover that your core self remains intact and even strengthened when the external cushions are removed. Imagine a highly successful executive, someone whose identity is intertwined with their corner office and luxury car. As a practice in voluntary discomfort, they might choose to take public transportation to work for 1 week. This is not about saving money. It is a deliberate exercise in detaching their sense of self from a status symbol. On that crowded train, they are stripped of the visible badge of their success. The initial feeling might be one of awkwardness or even irritation, but as they persist, they make a profound discovery. Their competence, their intelligence, their value as a person did not evaporate when they left the car in the garage. They are the same person, whether in a tailored suit on a subway or behind the wheel of a premium sedan. The luxury car becomes a preferred indifferent, a nice thing to have, but no longer a pillar holding up their identity. This practice is available to anyone at any scale. Your challenge is to choose one small, safe act of voluntary discomfort in the next 24 hours. It could be as simple as taking a cold shower for the last 30 seconds of your morning routine, or turning off all non-essential notifications on your phone for an entire day. As you do this, pay close attention not to the physical sensation, but to the mental cravings that arise. When you feel the urge to turn the water warm, observe the part of you that demands immediate comfort. When you resist checking your phone, notice the anxious pull, the hunger for that external connection and validation. You are not just building tolerance for cold water or silence. You are conducting a live experiment to see where your dependencies lie, and in that observation, you begin to reclaim your freedom from them. The Stoics didn't just accept setbacks, they learned to love them, especially public ones. This radical embrace is captured in the powerful idea of Amor Fati, a love of one's fate. It is the mindset of looking at every single event, especially the stinging criticisms and painful failures, and saying yes. Not a resigned, passive yes, but an active, grateful yes, because everything that happens is raw material for your growth. The philosopher Nietzsche, who was deeply influenced by the Stoics, later crystallized this when he wrote that his formula for human greatness is Amor Fati, to want nothing to be different, not in the future, not in the past, not for all eternity. This is not about pretending that failure feels good. It is about recognizing that what feels like an obstacle is actually the path itself. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily, reminding himself that the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. When you face public criticism, it is not a barrier to your progress. It is the very training ground your character needs to become stronger. It is feedback, not a verdict. Consider the story of an inventor in their workshop, surrounded by early, clumsy prototypes. Their first public demonstration is met with laughter and dismissive comments. The ego, craving validation, wants to crumble, to hide the invention away forever. But the inventor practicing Amor Fati sees the same scene through a completely different lens. They look at the failed prototype and love it. They love it not for its flaws, but for what its flaws reveal. Each broken gear, each malfunction, is a clear, unambiguous message from reality, pointing directly to what needs to be fixed. The mocking criticism is not a personal attack. It is free, if brutally delivered, market research. They welcome the failure because it is a necessary and direct step on the only possible path to a successful design. Without those failed attempts, the final, elegant solution could never have been discovered. The criticism was not an enemy to their success. It was an essential collaborator. Now bring this into the quiet space of your own memory. Think back to a recent event you labeled as a failure or a moment of embarrassment. Perhaps you stumbled during a presentation, or a project you led did not meet its goals, and you felt the sting of perceived judgment. Now actively reframe that event using the lens of Amor Fati. Ask yourself, how did that exact experience, with all its discomfort, make me stronger, wiser, or more resilient? What specific feedback did it provide about my approach, my skills, or my assumptions? How was this seemingly negative event a necessary and even welcome chapter in the larger story of my growth? In loving that fate, you are not celebrating the pain. You are honoring the strength it built and the lesson it delivered, transforming a source of shame into a cornerstone of your inner citadel. The Stoics had a secret weapon against ego, an imaginary, perfectly wise person whose opinion was the only one that mattered. They called this figure the sage, an ideal of flawless rationality and virtue. This was not a person to be worshipped, but a psychological compass, a north star for your own character. By constantly asking a simple question, what would the sage do, you instantly detach from the petty concerns of reputation and refocus on the only thing of real importance, right action itself. This mental exercise forces you to consult your highest self, not the most popular opinion. Epictetus encouraged his students to have Socrates himself present to their minds in every situation, to use him as your model. The goal is to live as if this perfectly wise figure were always watching your every action and thought, not to police you, but to guide you toward your own inherent wisdom. Imagine you are in a challenging work meeting, a situation ripe for posturing and political maneuvering. Your idea is unfairly criticized, and the easy, ego-driven response is to launch a defensive counterattack to save face. Now picture a figure like Cato the Younger, a Roman senator famous for his unyielding integrity, sitting silently in the corner of the room, his eyes on you. In that moment, the desire to look clever or to win the argument loses its power. The only question that remains is, what would a person of true courage and justice do here? The answer likely shifts from a clever retort to a calm, principled defense of the idea's merits, or even a gracious acceptance of valid points. The sage does not act for the applause of the room, but for the integrity of the act. Your task today is to choose your own Stoic sage. This can be a respected historical figure, a wise mentor you have known, or even a composite, imagined person who embodies the virtues you most admire. Before you make your next significant decision, whether it is how to respond to a difficult email or whether to engage in a piece of gossip, take one quiet moment to consult them. Mentally picture them observing you. What course of action would earn their silent, knowing nod of approval? This is not about seeking another external opinion, but about awakening the wisest voice that already resides within you. Marcus Aurelius, ruler of the known world, constantly reminded himself that soon he would be forgotten. He would write in his private journal, name just one of those who grieved endlessly for the dead, and then consider that long ago, even those who grieved themselves died. The memory of entire civilizations, of heroes and emperors, fades into a silent, dusty library of history. This is the sobering practice of Memento Mori, a meditation not on morbidity, but on the ultimate scale of what truly matters. The Stoics used this perspective to shrink the ego's frantic demands down to their proper, insignificant size. Every reputation, whether glorious or notorious, is ultimately temporary. Chasing a legacy built on external validation is like building your house on a coastline that is being slowly, inevitably, washed away by the ocean of time. Your personal brand, your social media following, the praise of your peers, all of it is destined for the same oblivion. Marcus Aurelius pressed this point with unflinching clarity, asking himself to recall the times of Vespasian or Trajan, and to see all those bustling lives, their weddings, their farms, their reputations. Where is it all now? He concludes, smoke and ashes, a story told, or not even a story. The legends of the past are barely remembered, and the legends of today will be utterly forgotten tomorrow. Consider the modern obsession with personal branding, the endless hustle to craft a perfect image and accumulate digital accolades. We curate our lives for an audience, terrified of being irrelevant. Now place that effort against the backdrop of 100 years from now. Picture a great-grandchild looking at a faded photo of you on their device. They will not know the number of your followers, the witty captions you wrote, or the professional titles you held. Those external validations will have evaporated into data that no one bothers to access. The only thing that might remain is the echo of your character, the kindness you showed, the integrity you held, the love you gave. These are the internal qualities that constitute a life well lived, not the external noise that surrounded it. So here is a simple but profound exercise. Take a moment and write down on a piece of paper, what do I want to be remembered for? Be honest. Write down the accomplishments, the qualities, the legacy you hope to leave. Now, with a pen in your hand, read your list again. And for every single item that relies on the opinion, memory, or validation of another person, draw a line through it. Cross out the prestigious job title, cross out the number of people who admired you, cross out the public awards and the social media milestones. What remains on the page after you have crossed out everything that depends on other people? The words that are left, the qualities that cannot be taken from you even in death, that is the unshakable core of your existence. That is the only legacy time cannot erase. The Stoics believed your true country wasn't Rome or your hometown, but the entire cosmos, and that changes everything. This radical idea, known as Cosmopolitanism, was their ultimate tool for shrinking the ego's desperate need for a specific group's approval. You are not merely a citizen of one city or a member of one social circle. You are a citizen of the universe itself, a tiny but integral part of a vast, interconnected whole. When you internalize this perspective, the negative comment from a coworker or the dismissive glance from an acquaintance begins to feel like a single raindrop falling into an ocean. It simply cannot disturb the profound depth of your belonging. The philosopher Diogenes, when asked where he was from, did not name his city of origin. He simply declared, "I am a citizen of the world." This was not an act of arrogance, but one of profound humility and connection. He recognized that the arbitrary borders of nations and the shifting opinions of local tribes were far too small a stage upon which to base his entire sense of self-worth. Your identity, your value, is not contingent on the approval of the few dozen or few hundred people you interact with regularly. It is rooted in your shared humanity with the billions of other souls sharing this planet, and your place in the natural order of the cosmos itself. Imagine the liberating shift. You post a piece of creative work online, and it receives one harsh, critical review. If your world is small, that one voice can feel like a unanimous verdict, echoing in the confined space of your anxiety. But if your world is the entire cosmos, that single voice becomes a statistical inevitability, one day to point among a potential 8 billion others. It loses its power to define you because your sense of validation is no longer sourced from that tiny, volatile sample. It is drawn from the quiet knowledge that you are playing your part, however small, in the grand, unfolding story of humanity. So take a current worry, a specific situation where you are anxiously seeking or fearing someone's validation. Now, in your mind, zoom out. See yourself not just in the room or the office, but on this planet, a beautiful blue sphere spinning in the immensity of space. See the billions of other lives being lived simultaneously, each with their own struggles, their own joys, their own fleeting opinions. From this cosmic vantage point, how significant is that single person's approval or disapproval? The anxiety doesn't vanish, but it is put into its proper miniature scale, allowing you to reclaim the vastness of your own inner peace. Stoicism does not ask you to become a stone, unmoved by a kind word. The goal is to sever the addictive link between external approval and your inner stability. You can enjoy the warmth of a compliment without making it the fuel for your entire day. The crucial distinction lies not in what you want, but in what you believe you need for your basic happiness. This is the dichotomy of desire. It is perfectly natural to want connection, respect, and even praise. The problem begins when that want hardens into a need, when your sense of worth becomes contingent upon receiving it. A want is a preference you can enjoy or release without deep suffering. A need is a demand that, when unmet, creates a crisis. The Stoics aim to transform our vicious cravings back into simple wishes. Epictetus drew this line with elegant precision. He taught that when a desire is not fulfilled, the person who merely wished for it is mildly disappointed, but the person who needed it is in torment. He wrote, "Remember that following desire promises the attainment of what you desire, but to actually need it promises disappointment. The promise of desire is the hope of getting what you want. The promise of needing it is the guarantee of misery if you do not. Think of it as the difference between enjoying a delicious dessert and needing sugar to function. The first is a pleasant addition to a meal. The second is a dependency that controls your mood and health. A person who enjoys dessert can easily skip it without their world crumbling. A person who needs it experiences withdrawal, irritability, and a profound sense of lack without their fix. Your desire for approval operates on the same spectrum. When you need a like, a compliment, or a promotion to feel okay, you have entered a state of psychological dependency. You have handed another person the key to your emotional state. Your peace is no longer your own. It is held hostage by their next word or action. So bring this into the sharp focus of your own life. Identify one single thing you feel you absolutely need from someone else to be happy. Do you need your partner to validate your feelings in a specific argument? Do you need your manager to publicly recognize your contribution on a project? Do you need a certain number of likes on a post to feel that it was worthwhile? Now, for the next 24 hours, practice a profound mental shift. Consciously downgrade that need to a simple want. You can still prefer to have that validation. You can still act in ways that might earn it, but internally, you must practice the belief that your fundamental well-being does not depend on it. Your happiness is rooted in your own effort and your own character, and any external approval is just a welcome addition, like a beautiful sunset on a day that was already good. The Stoics discovered a powerful antidote to ego. Stop asking what will I get and start asking what can I give. This subtle shift in questioning redirects your entire life's compass away from the fragile island of the self and toward the vast, sturdy continent of the common good. When your primary focus becomes contribution rather than acquisition, the desperate need for validation simply loses its grip. You are no longer performing for an audience. You are participating in a shared project called humanity. This is because Stoic virtue is inherently social. It is not a solitary pursuit of personal perfection, but an active engagement with the world through justice, kindness, and service. Acting for the benefit of others provides a deep, intrinsic satisfaction that no amount of external praise can ever replicate. The fulfillment is built directly into the action itself. Marcus Aurelius constantly anchored himself in this perspective. He wrote in his Meditations, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee." He saw every individual as an integral part of a larger organism, and the health of the whole was the ultimate measure of a life well lived. Your duty, therefore, was not to stand out from the hive, but to contribute to its well-being. Your actions find their deepest meaning when they are woven into the fabric of the community. Consider a community volunteer who spends their Saturday mornings stocking shelves at a local food bank entirely anonymously. They receive no public accolades, their name is not in the newspaper, and no one thanks them on social media. Yet they leave each week with a profound sense of peace and connection. The act of filling a shelf with cans is not glamorous, but it is imbued with purpose. The satisfaction comes from the quiet knowledge that a family will eat because of that effort. This internal reward, the feeling of having played a necessary part in the well-being of the whole, is a form of validation that is both immediate and unshakable. It requires no audience because the act itself is its own confirmation. Today, I propose a simple experiment in this kind of fulfillment. Perform one small, completely anonymous act of kindness. It could be as simple as paying for the coffee of the person behind you in the drive-through without them knowing, or leaving a thoughtful book on a park bench with a kind note inside for a stranger to find. The crucial rule is that you must ensure no one can trace it back to you. As you do this, pay close attention to the internal sensation that follows. Notice the quiet warmth that spreads through you, a satisfaction that is entirely separate from any thank you or public recognition. That feeling is the echo of your own virtue, a reward generated not by the world's applause, but by the alignment of your action with the common good. It is a taste of a freedom that no ego can ever provide. The most important conversation you have each day is the one inside your head, and the Stoics were masters of it. This internal battlefield, where narratives of self-pity and validation are either nurtured or dismantled, is where true freedom is ultimately won or lost. The Stoics understood that our internal dialogue is not a passive stream of consciousness, but a powerful architect of our emotional world. We are constantly telling ourselves a story about what is happening to us, and the quality of that story dictates the quality of our life. Epictetus, in his Enchiridion, puts his finger on the precise mechanism. He writes, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them." The event itself is neutral. It is the judgment you layer onto it, the story you whisper to yourself, that creates the disturbance. A promotion that goes to a colleague is just a fact. The story you tell yourself, that this means you are not good enough or that you are fundamentally overlooked, is what generates the pain. The Stoic practice is to become a vigilant editor of this internal script. It is the conscious work of reframing thoughts from "I failed" to "I learned," or from "they don't like me" to "their opinion is outside my control." This is not about reciting empty affirmations, but about aligning your internal narrative with the fundamental Stoic truth of the dichotomy of control. You take a story that makes you a victim of circumstance and rewrite it to emphasize your own agency and capacity for growth. Consider the simple, stinging scenario of not getting a promotion you worked hard for. The automatic, ego-driven narrative might sound like this: "I am not good enough. My boss does not see my value. This is a catastrophe for my career." This internal script is a recipe for despair because it ties your entire sense of worth to a single external outcome you did not control. The Stoic rewrite, however, sounds radically different. It goes, "I am disappointed I did not get the promotion, but my worth is not determined by this single outcome. I will focus on what I can control: my continued effort, my dedication to learning, and my integrity in all my work. I will seek constructive feedback and use this experience to grow stronger." Do you hear the profound shift? The first script hands all power to an external verdict. The second reclaims power by focusing on character and action. The event has not changed, but your relationship to it has been utterly transformed. For the rest of today, your practice is this: catch just one self-critical or approval-seeking thought as it arises. It might be that flicker of "I looked foolish in that meeting," or the anxious "why haven't they texted me back?" The moment you notice it, pause. Do not judge the thought, simply observe it. Then consciously rephrase it. Turn "I looked foolish" into "I acted according to my best judgment in the moment, and that is all I can ever do." Turn "Why haven't they texted me back?" into "Their response is their business, my peace is mine." This is not a magic trick to make disappointment vanish. It is the disciplined art of ensuring that your own mind becomes a place of refuge, not a source of your own torment. Stoicism, at its heart, is a philosophy of radical honesty, starting with being honest with yourself. Every time you modify your opinions to fit in, or you hide a part of your life to appear more successful, you are spending precious mental energy on maintaining a facade. This is not just exhausting, it is a direct violation of the Stoic commitment to live in accordance with nature, which means living in accordance with truth. Your rational nature is designed to perceive reality clearly, not to construct elaborate fictions for public consumption. Seneca touched on this when he wrote that a guilty person is sometimes in a flutter and apologizes for a crime before they are accused. He was pointing to the inner turmoil that comes from living a lie, from the constant fear that your constructed mask will slip and reveal the person underneath. The strain of that performance is a tax you pay on your peace of mind, a tax that compounds with every inauthentic action. Consider the stark contrast between two lives. On one side is the social media influencer, whose entire existence is a carefully curated portfolio of perfect moments, sponsored products, and flawless aesthetics. Their days are consumed by the anxiety of keeping up the illusion, of filtering out any hint of normalcy or struggle. They are perpetually on stage, and the fear of a negative comment or a drop in followers is a constant, low-grade hum of terror. Their peace is entirely conditional. On the other side is someone who shares their life authentically, who isn't afraid to post about a failed recipe or a difficult day. Their online presence is not a performance, but a reflection. They receive less external validation in terms of sheer numbers, but the validation they do receive is for who they truly are, and their inner world is calm, integrated, and free from the fear of being exposed. Their strength comes from the seamless alignment between their inward principles and their outward actions. So, take a quiet moment for a courageous inventory. Identify one single mask you wear regularly to gain approval or avoid judgment. Is it the always agreeable colleague who never voices a contrary opinion? Is it the expert persona who feels they can never admit to not knowing something? Or is it the mask of having it all together when inside you feel overwhelmed? Now ask yourself this simple, liberating question. What would happen if I took that mask off for just one day? Not in a dramatic, confrontational way, but in a quiet, steady commitment to truth. What if you admitted you were unsure in a meeting? What if you shared a small, genuine struggle with a trusted friend? The fear tells you that you will be rejected, but the Stoic truth is that you will finally be free because you will have stopped handing your self-worth over to the judgment of an audience that was never meant to be your judge. The Stoic sage is like a rock in the ocean. Praise and criticism wash over them without moving them an inch. This is not a state of numbness, but a state of profound inner sovereignty. Their happiness is built upon a foundation that no external event can reach, the unassailable fortress of their own virtuous character. While the world offers flattery or hurls slander, the sage's peace remains untouched because it was never put up for grabs in the first place. The ancient texts describe this ideal as apatheia, a state of being free from unhealthy passions where the soul is imperturbable. It is not that the sage does not feel, but that their core judgment is not swayed by the shifting winds of fortune's gifts or attacks. Their good is entirely internal and therefore entirely secure. Think of a massive mountain, its peak anchored deep within the earth. The the sun can bathe its slopes in golden light, and the mountain does not swell with pride. A violent storm can lash its cliffs with wind and rain, and the mountain does not crumble in fear. The weather is transient, a temporary condition on its surface. The mountain's essence, its solidity and grandeur, remains constant through it all. The sage's character is that mountain. A compliment is the sunshine, pleasant but fleeting. An insult is the storm, loud but ultimately powerless to alter the core. Your own character is your true substance, while the opinions of others are merely the weather passing by. Now bring this into the sharp focus of your own recent experience. Recall a major compliment you received, perhaps for a presentation or a personal achievement. Remember the initial flush of pleasure. Now, in your mind, imagine what it would feel like to receive that exact same praise and be completely unmoved by it. Not ungrateful or rude, but internally stable, as if the words were a neutral observation about the weather. The validation would not be required to feel complete. Then recall a stinging insult or a piece of harsh criticism. Feel the old hurt for a moment. Now, imagine what it would feel like for that criticism to land and find no purchase, to simply bounce off a core of unshakable self-knowledge. The insult would not be able to create any internal conflict because your self-worth was never on the table for debate. That quiet, unassailable space, where neither flattery nor slander can dictate your inner state, is the freedom the sage embodies. It is the ultimate declaration that your peace is not a prize others get to award. If there was ever a man who embodied the fight against validation seeking, it was Cato the Younger, and it cost him everything. In the final, chaotic days of the Roman Republic, as powerful men like Julius Caesar amassed fortunes and legions of followers, Cato stood as a pillar of unbending principle. His entire political life was a masterclass in Stoic indifference to public opinion. While his contemporaries engaged in lavish bribery and grand speeches to win the favor of the mob, Cato's only campaign was a relentless, often infuriating, adherence to the ancient laws and virtues of the Republic. He was not trying to win a popularity contest. He was trying to save a civilization from itself, and he was utterly prepared to be hated for it. Plutarch, in his Life of Cato, records that even his enemies, men like Caesar who despised his obstinacy, were forced to concede a grudging respect for his integrity. They knew he could not be bought, flattered, or intimidated. His character was a fortress that no political pressure could breach. One of his most famous acts was his daily walk through the Roman Forum. While other senators paraded in expensive, brightly colored togas to display their status and wealth, Cato often wore only a simple, dark tunic, without even a tunic underneath, a deliberate rejection of the vanity and softness he saw corrupting the ruling class. People pointed and laughed. They called him eccentric and theatrical, but the laughter was just noise to Cato. His simple clothing was not a performance for applause, but a statement of his values, a quiet, constant reminder that a person's worth lies in their character, not their costume. He was demonstrating, through his own body, that the opinions of the crowd were a form of slavery he refused to accept. He upheld his principles even as the Republic crumbled around him, ultimately choosing to take his own life rather than live under the tyranny of Caesar, a man he considered a mortal enemy to liberty. In the eyes of the world, Cato died a failure. His cause was lost, yet in the Stoic sense he died a success, his inner citadel and his virtue completely intact. So bring this into the quiet space of your own conscience. What principle is so important to you that you would uphold it even if everyone you knew mocked you for it? Is it a commitment to honesty in a culture that rewards cutting corners? Is it a dedication to kindness when cynicism is the easier path? Cato's story is not a call to political rebellion, but to personal sovereignty. It asks you to identify the one line you will not cross, the one value you hold so dear that the laughter of the crowd becomes nothing more than a distant echo, powerless against the silence of your own resolve. Long before mindfulness became a modern trend, the Stoics were cultivating a powerful form of it to disarm the ego. They called this practice Prosochē, a state of vigilant, moment-to-moment attention to your own mind and your present actions. This isn't about emptying your mind, but about filling it completely with the task right in front of you, pouring your entire being into the effort itself, and in doing so, loosening the desperate grip on how that effort will be received. When you are fully absorbed in the process, the craving for a particular outcome, like praise or recognition, simply has no room to take root. Your focus is no longer split between doing the work and imagining the applause. The work becomes its own reward. Epictetus offered a startlingly intense way to frame this. He advised performing every single act in life as if it were the very last act of your life. Do it with reverence, with impeccable attention, and without the distraction of how it might look to someone else. This mindset isn't morbid, it's clarifying. It forces you to ask, if this were truly my final action, would I be worrying about how many people liked it, or would I be ensuring that the action itself was done with integrity and full presence? The quality of the act would be everything, and the opinion surrounding it would be nothing. Consider two musicians on the same stage. The first is lost in the flow of the music, their fingers moving almost instinctively, their entire being fused with the melody. They are not thinking about the critic in the third row or the recording of the performance. They are simply playing, and in that total immersion, they find a profound satisfaction that is entirely independent of the crowd's reaction. The second musician is technically proficient, but their attention is fractured. They are watching the audience, gauging smiles, and anticipating the applause. Their performance becomes a means to an end, a transaction for validation. The music itself becomes a source of anxiety, and their peace is entirely contingent on the fickle mood of the crowd. The difference between them is Prosochē. Your own life is filled with similar, everyday stages. So here is a simple practice for today. Choose one routine activity, something you normally do on autopilot. It could be making your morning coffee, writing a single email, or even washing a dish. For just those few minutes, commit to performing that action as if it were the most important task in the world. Pour all of your attention into the sensation of the water, the smell of the coffee, the careful selection of each word. When your mind wanders to what you'll do next or how someone might perceive your work, gently guide it back to the physical reality of the task. In that narrow, focused beam of attention, you will find a quiet space where the ego's constant chatter falls silent, and your actions become a source of peace all on their own. What if success had nothing to do with your title, your salary, or your follower count? Society hands us a rigid checklist for a life well lived, a script we are expected to follow without question. The Stoics invite you to tear up that script and write your own with a single, revolutionary criterion. A Stoic defines success as living virtuously, with wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline. Everything else, the promotions, the possessions, the public praise, is merely commentary. Your true success is measured by the quality of your character, a metric that is entirely within your power to achieve every single day. Seneca saw the madness of the conventional path with piercing clarity. He wrote in his letters, "Why do you seek so many things? Is it really for the necessities of life or for its superfluities?" He observed people exhausting themselves in the pursuit of wealth and status, only to find themselves owned by their own possessions, their peace forever hostage to the next acquisition or the next compliment. That relentless chase, he warned, is a hollow endeavor, a race with no finish line where the trophy is merely a heavier burden. To see this in practice, contrast two possible definitions of a successful year. The first is the standard version, a year deemed successful because of a promotion, a new car, and a 10% increase in social media followers. This success feels good, but it is brittle, entirely dependent on factors outside your control, on the decisions of bosses and the algorithms of platforms. The second definition, the Stoic version, would read something like this. A successful year is one where I acted with courage in difficult conversations, practiced justice by advocating for a colleague, used wisdom to navigate a complex problem, and exercised self-discipline in my daily habits. This version of success is unassailable. No market crash can erase the courage you showed. No negative comment can undo the justice you practiced. Your fulfillment is built into the effort itself, not delayed until a future reward that may never come. So here is your task, a quiet act of rebellion against the world's noisy demands. Take a moment and write down your own Stoic definition of success for the coming month. Do not list a single external achievement. Do not write about weight loss or a revenue target. Define your success entirely in terms of character. What does it mean for you to live with more courage this month? How will you practice more deliberate kindness? Where will you choose wisdom over convenience? This is not a to-do list for the world to see. It is a private compass pointing you toward a fulfillment that no one can ever take from you. If you are never misunderstood, you are probably not thinking for yourself, the Stoics would have said. This is the natural and often painful consequence of building an inner citadel. When you stop performing for the crowd and start living by a private compass, your path will inevitably diverge from the well-trodden one. People will squint at your choices, question your motives, and assign you labels you never chose for yourself. Seeking universal understanding is just another, more subtle form of validation seeking. A desperate hope that everyone will approve of the person you have decided to become. The Stoic accepts this friction as the price of integrity. Your values, if they are truly your own, will not always be popular. Marcus Aurelius confronted this reality in the solitude of his own mind. He wrote, "When you are distressed by an external thing, it is not the thing itself that troubles you, but your own judgment about it. And this judgment you have the power to revoke now." He applied this directly to the pain of being misjudged. It is pointless to be upset that others fail to understand you, he reasoned, because they are simply acting according to their own nature, their own limited knowledge, and their own fears. Their misunderstanding is a fact about their world, not a verdict on yours. To demand that they see things your way is to demand control over another person's mind, which is the very definition of frustration. Consider a parent raising their child with unconventional values, perhaps prioritizing creativity and emotional resilience over traditional academic achievement. They face a constant stream of criticism from grandparents, friends, and other parents who see their approach as negligent or strange. The easy path is to cave, to enroll the child in every tutoring program just to quiet the noise and gain the approval of the tribe. But the Stoic parent, acting out of love and a deeper principle, holds firm. They understand that the criticism is not a sign they are wrong, but a sign they are different. Their commitment is to the long-term well-being of the child, not to the temporary comfort of being understood by everyone at the family barbecue. They endure the sideways glances and the unsolicited advice, not with bitterness, but with the quiet resilience that comes from knowing their action is just. Now bring this into the landscape of your own memory. Recall a specific time you were misunderstood for doing what you knew, in your heart, was the right thing. Perhaps you defended an unpopular colleague at work and were labeled a troublemaker. Maybe you ended a toxic relationship and were called cold-hearted by mutual friends. That sting you felt was the old addiction to validation flaring up, craving the very approval your principles required you to forfeit. Today, I invite you to reframe that memory. See that misunderstanding not as a wound but as a badge of honor. It was the external proof that you had chosen the harder, truer path. It was the moment you graduated from needing the crowd's permission to act with integrity. Your attention is your most valuable currency. Are you spending it wisely, or are you wasting it on worrying about what others think? Every moment you spend fretting over a delayed reply, crafting the perfect caption for applause, or replaying a critical comment in your mind is a moment you have withdrawn from your inner treasury and handed over to the fickle court of public opinion. This is a profound misallocation of your most finite resource. The Stoics argued that this mental energy should be invested in the only venture that guarantees a return, the cultivation of your own character and virtue. Epictetus urged his students to be fiercely protective of their minds, to guard it as you would your most valuable possession. He understood that your mind is the command center of your life, and to leave its gates unguarded is to invite chaos and dependency. Think about the sheer volume of mental real estate occupied by concerns over external validation. You draft and redraft an email not for clarity, but to project a specific image. You scroll endlessly, comparing your life to curated snippets. You lie awake at night dissecting a single piece of feedback. This is all capital being spent, energy being burned. Now contrast that with the mental energy required for a different set of activities. Consider the focus needed to read a challenging book that expands your understanding, or the presence of mind required for a deep, uninterrupted conversation with a loved one, or the quiet reflection spent honestly assessing your own actions. One path depletes you, leaving you anxious and waiting for the next external signal. The other path builds you up, fortifying your inner citadel with resources that compound over a lifetime. So conduct a simple, honest audit of your attention over the last 24 hours. Mentally trace where your focus truly went. Can you estimate what percentage of your waking mental energy was spent, directly or indirectly, on managing your image or seeking approval from others? That number is not a judgment. It is a measure of how much of your most valuable currency you are currently investing outside of your own control. Let us take a step back, 1,000 years back, and look at your life from there. The sting of that ignored text message, the flush of pride from a public compliment, the entire theater of your social standing, all of it shrinks into a single, silent point of light in an ocean of time. This is the Stoic view from above, a powerful mental exercise that dissolves the ego by revealing its true, fleeting scale. Marcus Aurelius was a master of this perspective. He would sit in his palace and write, "Remember that all is opinion, for what is the present time, a mere point." He constantly reminded himself to look at things as they will be 100 years from now, or 1,000. He saw the sprawling Roman Empire not as an eternal monument, but as a temporary gathering, a swarm of ants on a tiny leaf, bustling with anxieties that would be utterly forgotten in the blink of a cosmic eye. He asked himself to recall the court of Hadrian, all its drama and intrigue, and then simply noted, where are they now? Nowhere, or no one knows where. That entire world, with all its passions and reputations, has vanished without an echo. Picture a bustling marketplace in an ancient city like Carthage or Babylon. The air is thick with the shouts of merchants, the political gossip of nobles, the laughter of children. Every person in that crowd is the center of their own universe, worrying about their social standing, their wealth, their legacy. They feel their anxieties and triumphs with the same raw intensity that you feel yours today. Now shift the frame. That marketplace is now an archaeological dig, a layer of dust and broken pottery. The voices are silent, the reputations erased, the social triumphs and humiliations long since resolved into soil. The anxiety that consumed a merchant over a rival's success did not matter in the end. The praise he craved from his peers turned to nothing. Now close your eyes for just a moment and bring forward your own current worry about validation. It might be that presentation you are nervous about, or a relationship you are trying to fix, or a post you are hoping will go viral. See that worry clearly. Now, in your mind, project yourself forward 1,000 years. Look back at this moment, at this version of you from that vast, silent future. From that immense distance, what weight does that single social moment truly hold? The outcome, whether it was praise or criticism, has long since been absorbed into the indifferent flow of history. The only thing that remains from this entire age is the faint echo of character, the quiet record of how you chose to meet your brief moment. The fear of embarrassment, the hunger for a like, the entire performance for an audience that will itself be forgotten, all of it is rendered peacefully, profoundly insignificant. Every morning, the world invites you to trade your integrity for a little bit of approval. The Stoic practice is to politely decline. This is not a single, grand gesture of defiance you make once and for all. It is a quiet, daily discipline, a series of small, courageous choices that build the unshakable foundation of your character. Each time you choose to voice an uncomfortable truth over a convenient lie, or to create something authentic instead of pandering for likes, you win a small but decisive victory in the 2,000-year battle with your own ego. The Roman statesman Cicero, who studied Stoic principles, argued that courage is the highest virtue, for it is the quality that guarantees all others. Without the courage to stand by your convictions, your wisdom remains silent, your justice goes unenforced, and your self-discipline crumbles under social pressure. Courage is the guardian at the gate of your inner citadel, the one who allows your other strengths to flourish. Picture a routine team meeting at work. The discussion turns to a popular but flawed project plan. Everyone is nodding along, eager to maintain the harmonious atmosphere and secure the manager's approval. The easy, validation-seeking path is to simply add your own nod and stay silent. But the Stoic-minded individual in that room, drawing on their daily practice, feels the weight of a different responsibility. They take a quiet breath and offer a dissenting, truthful perspective. They speak not to be contrarian or to show off, but because it is the just and wise thing to do for the success of the project. In that moment, they willingly exchange the temporary comfort of group approval for the lasting integrity of having spoken their truth. They have declined the world's invitation. Now bring this into the sharp focus of your own day ahead. Where does that invitation await you? What is the one courageous no you can say today to the relentless demand for external validation? It might be refusing to laugh at a joke that goes against your values. It could be choosing not to check the like count on a post you shared from the heart. It might be the simple act of admitting you do not know the answer in a situation where you are expected to be the expert. Identify that single, specific refusal. That is your daily invitation to courage, your next brick in the wall of a freedom that no audience can ever grant. The 2,000-year war against your ego is not a relic of history. It is the quiet battle you fight every time you refresh your screen. The Stoics discovered that our deepest peace cannot be found in the roar of the crowd, but only in the silent sovereignty of our own character. We have walked through their essential tools, from the fundamental dichotomy of control that separates your actions from their outcomes, to the relentless focus on virtue as your only true measure of success. We have practiced negative visualization to disarm our fears, and embrace the cosmic perspective of Memento Mori to shrink our anxieties down to their proper size. The ultimate freedom they promised is this: to remain unmoved, not by becoming cold, but by becoming so rooted in your own principles that neither the admiration nor the contempt of others can sway your inner world. Epictetus captured this liberation with stunning clarity when he wrote, "He is free who lives as he wishes, who cannot be compelled, restrained, or hindered, whose impulses are not frustrated, who desires nothing that is not his own, and who avoids nothing that he would not avoid." This is the person who has won the war, the one who desires nothing that belongs to the fickle world of opinion. As this video ends, your own practice begins. Of all the Stoic ideas we have explored, which single one will you carry with you into the coming week? Will it be the evening review to audit your dependencies, or the discipline of assent to guard your inner gate? Share your choice, your own struggles, and your insights in the comments below. Let us build a community not of performance, but of support, a place where we can remind each other that the only validation that ever truly matters is the one we grant ourselves.